Welcome to Google Ads Unleashed, the podcast that helps you harness the power of Google Ads. And now your host, Jeremy Young.
Sometimes you launch a demand gen campaign and you have creatives which are absolutely crushing it. And then after a short amount of time, they either become too expensive or they start to burn out. You have the same issue when you actually launch meta ads. Today, I'm going to tell you how you can still repurpose those creatives without having to edit anything, just by reusing the same ones. Hello and welcome back to Google Ads Unleashed, guys. Hope everyone is doing fabulously this Monday morning or whenever you're listening. But today I've got like a quick and dirty one, so it should be quite a short episode really, because I just want to share a cool thing with you, which is something I've been testing lots more and which has just simply started to work for us, and that is what I call zombie campaigns. So I had a bit of the inspiration from a very good friend of mine who sort of uses this concept very regularly on meta ads. So on Meta, with my limited knowledge, of course, I'm pretty well aware of how everything works, but I'm not as deep in it as I'm with Google Ads, of course. You, of course, have to test creatives, and we do the same thing in demand gen, right? Very often we repurpose even just the best performing creatives from a good push channel such as Meta on demand gen, and that works pretty well, okay? So what typically happened, and this is something that my friend noticed, is that after a while creatives tend to burn out when they're not absolute killer creative. Some creative can run forever, right? I know some ad accounts where the same ad has been running for years, potentially even. But at some point, the audience that you target is getting fed up with the ad that they're seeing, or it just starts to become more expensive. It still may convert, but the CPCs are creeping up, or the conversion rate's slightly gone down, etc., etc., and you have it in your existing demand gen or meta ads campaign, and it doesn't seem to work anymore. So what my mate done is the following. So he created a separate campaign, which he calls a zombie campaign. Put a bid cap on it. So he said, basically, I'm not willing to spend more than X, Y, and Z per click, or CPM or whatever, in order to reach my intended audience. And he slapped those best performer creatives in there. So I've done the same. Typically, I've already made a full episode on how to structure your demand gen campaign, so go and listen to that one. But typically, if we have a working setup that we are running, we do exactly the same. So we have sort of an existing setup. We, of course, use third-party attribution, post-purchase survey data, and others to understand how well a creative is doing. But at some point, creatives may be burning out. So something that we've done a lot now in the recent weeks is when we actually understand that a creative has done sensationally well, instead of just making variations or adding a different hook or whatever and trying to revive it, which we don't do that much really. Very rarely do we actually produce creative ourselves. We want to produce creative ourselves further down the line. But what we are doing very regularly is to duplicate those into a new demand gen campaign, but use either tCPA or tROAS with it. Why that works is pretty straightforward, because most demand gen campaigns, when you create them new and when you launch them, can only launch on a max conversion strategy. So it's quite an aggressive bid strategy that will very aggressively try to go for as many conversions as possible, of course, whatever demand gen can measure, of course, within the platform. So what the tCPA strategy does is, or the tROAS strategy, is it limits your bids exactly like it does with my friend with this meta campaign where he has a bid cap. It limits the bids and the CPMs, and it just prolongs the lifetime of those creatives, okay? So we've been doing this quite a lot with stuff that we're in all of our ad accounts. In a lot of our ad accounts, and it's worked remarkably well. So you can even go back historically, looked at all the stuff that you've turned off that once worked, pop it into this new campaign that you've created with the bid cap, which is now working because you've been running a lot of demand gen for a while. And quite frankly, off by heart, I'm not sure if every new demand gen requires to be off max conversions nowadays. But typically it's still a good idea because that's quite an aggressive bid strategy to test the creative, and then you can put it into this new campaign. For the tCPA, I would probably look at a time period where your campaign worked really well. Look at what the on-platform tCPA or tROAS was of that campaign and set it like slightly, tCPA slightly below, or the target ROAS slightly above that, right? So in order to get a conservative bid. What I've noticed is that those campaigns don't spend the full daily budget either, usually. So you can be quite aggressive with your budgets on those because you know they're the absolute proven best performers on demand gen anyway. And it just adds another like 10-15% in volume to your existing setup, because you're just repurposing those creatives. Again, what I would do is separate those out by placement if you can. If you have enough volume for either shorts, in-stream and images, right? If you don't, I'm more than happy for you to just create one campaign with this bid strategy, one ad group for the shorts, one ad group for in-stream, one ad group for your image placements, potentially an ad group for in-feed, depending if you feel fancy, and let it run like this. Copy that and let me know how it works. I'd love to hear your feedback, but that's why you need to be creative about your Google Ads. And if you feel stuck, then just have a chat with me. Just send me an email, jeremy@younganddigital.marketing, or head to the website, younganddigital.marketing, and book a call with me on Calendly. Or alternatively, you can always message me on LinkedIn, Jeremy and Google Ads, and I'm happy to help you there as well and give you a helping hand. I hope this tip was helpful. Do let me know, and I would love to see you in the next episode. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Google Ads Unleashed. To connect with Jeremy, check him out online at www.younganddigital.marketing. We'll see you next time.